bizarre situation has just occurred in video gaming censorship, and yet hardly anyone is talking about it. None of the major outlets are talking about it. Very strange. There might literally be a censorship conspiracy going on right now, which I promise you is not clickbait. We are going to explore this situation with Neptunia Sisters versus Sisters, which, even if you're not interested in this game, I want you to listen. The few outlets that I have seen cover this story have suggested that this could end up causing ripples across the entire industry, changing censorship standards forever for teen-rated games. Allowing some mature content in your teen-rated games is important because if we over-sanitize the label, it will result in video game developers and publishers watering down their video games. They want the extra sales that the teen rating will allow them to have, and so they will be forced to make more concessions in regards to what it is that they water down. Especially when a video game is already developed, such as when a video game is translated from Japan to the Western market, it really hurts when video games start to get censored. So, let's get to the bottom of this story. Has the slippery slope happened, and has the frog already been boiled? Welcome to your new padded room. Idea Factory released Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters on the PS4, PS5, and Steam on January 24th. 2.5 months later, April 8th, Idea Factory has released a patch in order to censor their video game, changing the dialogue in 16 separate lines, the majority of which require a change in the English dubbing as well. Typically, when games get censored, it ends up being one of the usual suspects. Over-the-edge sexual content that doesn't fly in polite society, or problematic content that is a focal point of current debate. However, censorship seems to have just gone beyond that. Now, we're just censoring mildly bad words. In this video game, in this patch, 3 uses of the word ass in reference to kicking ass, 7 instances of the word pissed, as in being angry, 2 instances of the word shit, once as a negative adjective, and another in referring to something as BS, and 4 instances of the word bastard. 3 of which as a generic insult, and 1 in reference to the sword, which is a legitimate style of sword that has been used in E for Everyone rated games in the past previously. Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters is rated T for teen in North America. Idea Factory announced that these changes are being made to comply with the teen ESRB rating. This suggests that the ESRB wants this to happen in order for the game to retain its teen ESRB rating. This requirement of the ESRB is weird. This type of language is already in previous Neptunia games that have the teen rating, as well as mountains of other video games that have the teen rating as well. Per Idea Factory themselves, this patch is hitting Europe as well in order to ensure parity across regions for the Western release of this title. The PEGI system was not addressed specifically in Idea Factory's communications in regard to why this change is happening. Also, interestingly enough, the Steam release of this game, which is not rated by any of these overseers, is getting updated as well. We need to figure out what the hell is happening here. If this is the canary in the coal mine signaling that censorship is about to get really bad, we should probably know about it. The last thing that we want is to move ever closer to a world where everything needs to be squeaky clean, with speech standards across the board being at advertiser-friendly level. So what is going on? First, in order to move forward, we need to look at the theory that this might have been a bad self-report of content to the ESRB, and that Idea Factory screwed themselves, and now everyone is the victim. Alright, quick, before we dive into this conspiracy, and I assure you, it's a juicy one, please give this video a thumbs up since it helps me with the algorithm, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. In the ESRB rating on the Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters box, where the game is listed as T for teen, language isn't listed as one of the bad things within the game. With these standards of mild swears within the video game, it would be expected that language would have been listed there. This suggests that it may be possible that Idea Factory had failed to self-report in the rating process that there is some variation of swearing within the game. This is an interesting theory because upon analysis, it really does seem like somebody screwed up somewhere. For an ESRB rating, the video game creators are supposed to self-report to the ESRB with their most outrageous content in video format, and then the ESRB is supposed to review that content and issue a rating. Did Idea Factory neglect to indicate bad language? Was bad language properly indicated, but then the ESRB failed to provide the correct label for the game? Or, in an even bigger fumble, did everyone do the right thing up to this point, but then Idea Factory failed to put the right label on the final product? I thought that perhaps looking at the European version of the box might shine some light on the situation to see if there is any inconsistency. While the European box doesn't list language, it seems to use icons that you need to decipher, which is a little confusing. And looking up similar games with similar language, those titles don't seem to have any indications of bad language either. The European box is a no-go for figuring this one out. To go with this theory, that Idea Factory is just complying with a classification that had been botched, requires buying into what would be, by definition, a slight conspiracy, even if it is the story that makes the most sense. Idea Factory explicitly said to comply with the TESRB rating. They didn't say to comply with the TESRB rating and all objectionable content listed. If true, would that mean Idea Factory is lying to cover for someone's mistake? Trying to weasel that language into covering an improper call out of language to the ESRB would be a massive stretch, but I've seen worse out of companies. It's possible. The ESRB website does indicate that raters playtest games post-release to ensure that complete and accurate content disclosure was provided to the ESRB when it was originally submitted for rating. According to the enforcement section of the ESRB website, the display of rating information on physical games is far more difficult to modify after a game ships. As a result, the enforcement system includes sanctions and fines up to $1 million that could be imposed on publishers who don't fully disclose content during the rating process. Yikes, that's wild. If the game wasn't being censored, some type of correction would still need to happen in regards to the ESRB label. Theoretically, the bad content is still on the disc if you don't update it, so the patching out isn't perfect for aligning with the rating on the box. The question then is, how does everyone go about correcting this mistake? If we are going to go on guessing intent, for the sake of argument, to go with this bad self-report theory, I highly doubt that this was intentional by Idea Factory. With the type of content in Neptunia video games, let's be honest, the swearing is the least of anyone's worries. Also, with the swearing in the video game, if we are to go by other video games, it should still be a T for teen game. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion is an interesting case of when an ESRB rating was changed. Post-release, the ESRB found that there was more blood and gore than what was originally submitted, in addition to a topless skin that was technically within the game that modders were using in order to add nudity. This bumped up the rating from T for teen to M for mature. Developer and publisher Bethesda had to notify all retailers of the change issue stickers for retailers and distributors to stick on the product, display the new rating information in all following product shipments and marketing, and create a patch that would remove the topless skin. In looking at the boxes, comparing the T-rated version to the M-rated version on the PC, we see that nudity is now listed on the M-rated version when it was originally not on the T-rated version, even though it was patched out. Theoretically, if this story were to parallel the Oblivion story, the website at this point should at least have been updated to include language, since that would fall under marketing material, since these bad word versions are now floating out there in the wild. However, it hasn't, which is interesting, although it could be a very easy oversight for a company that has previously theoretically made one. Ultimately, the ESRB is self-regulated, which means that they are the ones to determine the process when there is a discrepancy. The MPAA works the same way as well, which is the self-regulating body that assigns ratings to movies. If the word gets out to the normies that this game has the S word twice in it, nobody is going to care. Not nearly as much as an Elder Scrolls title having a little bit more blood and some nudity tucked away. The intensity of the situation is much lower for Neptunia. The rating for Neptunia should theoretically stay the same with the small number of swears that it has. The ESRB, who set policy themselves, could easily determine that the damage has already been done. It's too bad that an oversight was made. Idea Factory could get a stern warning not to screw up again, and then any newly printed copies could get the updated call out of bad language on the back of the box. That's really all that needs to happen, and we could go on without having this video game censored if this is the case. With the ESRB not doing this, they are setting an anti-developer publisher standard. This change in content for this video game release, watering down the language a little bit, is not going to really make any substantive change in regards to who should be playing this video game. The suggestive themes in this game far overshadows anything related to language. If this is the case, and I would say that it is the leading theory that makes the most sense, what do we do? Is it time to boycott Idea Factory for censoring their game? I'm going to say no, and here's why. Like I said, if we are to go with this theory, I highly doubt that Idea Factory made the mistake intentionally, failing to report the slightly bad language. Mistakes happen in business all the time. It sucks, but life goes on, and no life was lost in this situation, so we're all good. Idea Factory needs to kowtow to the ESRB in order to sell video games for the PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo systems. These console manufacturers do not allow unrated games on their consoles. In order for Idea Factory to continue to exist, they need to keep the ESRB happy and do what it is that they say. Idea Factory, as the publisher for niche Japanese role-playing video games that most people don't understand nor want to understand, they are sitting on the bottom of the totem pole in regards to having any sort of muscle in negotiating power. It's no secret that Sony treats niche anime games a little harsher in the US in terms of allowable content. In sitting in such a disadvantage, it behooves Idea Factory to keep the ESRB happy, Sony happy, and everyone else as happy as possible because they're the perceived deviants in this situation. In order to keep existing, Idea Factory, just like all of us, need to bow to their masters. And yes, it's sad. The ESRB, they could fix the situation and work with Idea Factory to find a solution that doesn't piss off anybody. It's really within their power. With the ESRB not doing this, I believe that it would then be their fault because they set the policies and they determine how they enforce their own policies. And if they've been cornered by their own policies, then it's their own fault for getting there in the first place. So what about the Steam version getting censored? Idea Factory might not have the overhead to manage separate versions of the same game. I'm sure that they know that fans will immediately patch the game back to its original state. So what do we do about the ESRB? That I would love to know. And if you have any suggestions, please comment away. People have been up in arms over the MPAA, who rates the movies, causing censorship to occur, and yet nothing seems to have been accomplished there. I'm tempted to suggest that maybe we tweet at the ESRB and let them know that we are dissatisfied, but we are still operating off of a theory at this point. And unless Idea Factory further elaborates on the situation, which I implore them to do, and I did reach out to them on Twitter for further information, but I haven't heard anything back yet, it feels like we are at a standstill until we have more information. It really bugs me what's going on with this game. Neptunia Sisters vs. Sisters is not going to end up on my top 10 list of 2023, but I hate to see censorship in gaming like this. Lines need to be drawn, and we need to use our voices to push back against non-creative types affecting media, because while now it's only, a niche video game, an anime video game getting sacrificed, if these standards are set, the shit will only roll downhill, and more games and media will be affected. I would love to hear your take on this situation. I read all of the comments. Are there any instances of media censorship that have really bothered you in the past? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, since it helps my videos get out there and helps it out with the algorithm. Let me know your comments as well. Tell a friend about these videos and follow me on Twitter at NeverChris. I'm trying to get this channel rolling, so I appreciate all feedback. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Wow, 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 wow.